Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lindsay and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys a dupe slash comparison video between the Charlotte Tilbury luxury palettes and the ELF Bite Size Eyeshadow palettes. If you guys aren't already subscribed, I would love to have you, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you do enjoy at any point. Let's go ahead and hop into today's video. Before we get started in today's video, I did want to mention that the Black Lives Matter movement is still very important, not just right now in this moment of time, but also moving forward in the future. We need to be taking action. So that's why I will still have links and resources where you can donate. If you don't have money, how you can help, and petitions to sign, all the tools that you guys will need to take action, I will have that linked below. I'll also link below some of my favorite Black creators. If you guys haven't already subscribed to them on YouTube, I love their channels. I will have them all listed below. And if you're interested in trying any Black owned makeup brands and supporting them, my last video was a feature of all of them, and I've been updating a list in the description with a bunch more brands to support and check out. So thank you guys for suggesting those brands that I've been adding to the list. So I want to mention that I'm not really pushing that aside. It's still very at the forefront of my mind, and I feel like it should be at your mind as well. Again, not just right now, but moving forward as well. So let's get into the makeup. Alright guys, let's start talking about the dupes we have here. I'm going to start with the Charlotte Tilbury quads. I have 4 different colorways to share with you. So these are called their luxury eye palettes, but the specific ones that I have are the mesmerizing eye collections. So they're for each eye color, but Charlotte does carry a bunch of other palettes. They have a ton of them on Sephora, and these retail for $53 for 4 shades of eyeshadow. So very pricey for a little quad. I do really like the packaging. I mean, it feels super luxurious. It's nice and compact. You do get a nice mirror and this sort of like gold plated inside. What I'm going to be duping them with are drastically different in price. These are the ELF Bite Size Eyeshadow palettes. These are $3 each for 4 shades. They just come in this clear packaging. I have 5 of these here to show you. I picked up the ones that look the most similar to me. There is a couple sort of like crossover shades in the palettes as well. So let's start with my favorite of the Charlotte palette. This one is made for blue eyes. This one is called Copper Charge. This one looked the most similar to me to the ELF Bite Sized Eyeshadow in Pumpkin Pie. This one's not quite as pink tone, but it still has a lot of the same like really gorgeous gold tones in it. I will swatch both of these next to each other. I'm going to swatch the rest of these for you guys and compare the shades, and then when I'm putting them on my eye, I will explain the formula differences and similarities. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the Charlotte Tilbury Copper Charge palette. Here's what it looks like up close. So first is this gold shade, pretty true gold. And then next is like a glitter topper, not very pigmented. It just is like a gold shimmer. And then here we have, I think it's my favorite color in this palette, really pretty, just copper metallic, very smooth. And then this last shade is the matte burgundy. The shade that I have next to it is actually this ELF. This is called the Carnival Candy palette. It's that burgundy red. So I put that right next to it because I felt like it was a really similar shade. And then moving on to the ELF Pumpkin Spice palette. Is that what it's called? Pumpkin Pie. So first is just like this matte warm brown. And next is this super pigmented copper shade. It's sort of similar to the Charlotte Tilbury one, but it just has a little bit more warmth to it. Then we have this matte brown. It's kind of like a cooler tone brown. I would say it's actually neutral. And then this last shade is another pretty copper. Again, not a sort of red tone as the Charlotte palette, but I feel like they do still give off the same vibe. Next up is the one I thought was the most similar initially. This is the Mesmerizing Maroon by Charlotte Tilbury. This one is made for green eyes, has really gorgeous berry tones. And then the ELF shadow to go with that. This one is called Berry Bad Bite Sized Eyeshadow Palette. This one has 2 shimmers, 2 mattes. And then Tilbury one has 3 shimmers and 1 matte. Next is the palette I'm going to be using today, which is Mesmerizing Maroon. This might be my favorite between this one and Copper Charge. I feel like they're both just really pretty. Starting at the Charlotte palette at the top here is just this Champagne. Champagne looks pretty dark on me. If you have medium to deeper skin though, it's going to be a really pretty highlight color. Then we have the like glitter topper shade in this palette, which is definitely more pigmented than the Copper Charge. Has a really pretty reflect through it. And then moving on, the shade Stunning. It's just this plum pinky metallic, very smooth. And then we just have the matte purple. Pretty true tone purple there. And then here is the ELF Berry Bad palette, which I'll be comparing to the Charlotte Tilbury one. So at the top there we have this matte light pink, and then we have more of a red tone metallic, and then the third shade here is a berry metallic, and then the last one there is a purple, not quite as like true tone purple, it's a little bit more muted. These two palettes seemed really similar to me, although they don't really swatch the same. I feel like on the eye they ended up looking super similar. So you guys will see that in my little demo. Next is the Charlotte Tilbury Super Blue palette. I believe this one is made for brown eyes. This has some really gorgeous tones, and I picked up the ELF ACU palette to go with this one, but I also have the other palette, the fifth ELF palette, that has this rich deep blue, which I thought was a lot similar to that deep blue in the Charlotte palette. Here we have the Charlotte Tilbury Super Blue Luxury Eye Palette. First shade up here from the Charlotte palette is a light gold. Then we have this shimmery blue. Again, this is one of those like more glittery shades. And then we have this rich bronze. And then the last shade is a very pigmented deep blue. And then moving on to the ELF palette. This obviously isn't like an exact dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury one. It's more of a pastel blue palette. Starting at the top is just this light periwinkle. And then we have a metallic, deeper version of that shade. And this is like a satin shade. It's not super metallic, but it does have some sheen to it. And then at the end here is this deep blue, which isn't very pigmented. Comes off a little patchy too. But at the end here, I swatched two more ELF shades that I wanted to compare to in this palette. The first gold one is from the ELF Pumpkin Pie palette. It's this one at the end here. And I swatched this to compare to the bronze and the Charlotte Tilbury. A little bit more warm hued, but I do feel like they are similar. And then that one at the end here is from the ELF Carnival Candy palette. It's the deep metallic blue in this one. The shade from the ELF palette I really love. It has great pigmentation. And that is, it's sort of similar to this. This is more glittery, but I just wanted to show you guys a metallic blue option from the ELF palettes. And then lastly, we have the Charlotte Tilbury. What? Next we have the Charlotte Tilbury palette. This one is the shade Green Lights. I think this one's made for hazel eyes or green eyes. I don't remember. But anyway, this is really pretty. It has more of these like, they're definitely more toned down green compared to this ELF one I have picked up. This one is more of true to the really just like snaky green. I don't know if that really makes sense. Snaky green type of more bold green hue. So let's swatch these. Lastly is the Charlotte Tilbury Green Lights. This one is super pretty. You get all metallics. There isn't any mattes in this palette. I do feel like it's really unique though. Just the tone of these greens. It's really stunning. Starting at the top, we have a gold. It's a little bit more yellow as opposed to the other golds in the Charlotte palette. We have this shade, which is just so pretty. It's this brown, definitely has a green undertone with a really pretty golden shimmer. It's definitely a lot more pigmented than some of the other sort of glittery shades in the Charlotte palette. Third is this metallic army green, a little more subdued. And then lastly is like another glittery shade, which is a deep brown, and it has both gold and silver reflect in it. Moving on to the ELF Hot Jalapeno palette. Again, not a palette that's directly a dupe for the Charlotte one. Here we have a true yellow gold, a lot more yellow than that Charlotte one. We have this grassy metallic green, a deep forest green, and then a very more blue toned matte green. So this has two mattes and two metallics, two totally different vibes of green depending on what you're looking for. This is the one I feel like the Charlotte Tilbury palette is definitely unique. I don't really have anything to dupe this with. I feel like the shades are just very unique, as I said. So those were all of my swatches. I'm not going to try all of these on my eyes. The one I think I'm going to try out today, doing one eye of each, is the Charlotte. This is the Mesmerizing Maroon palette with the ELF Berry Bad palette. These weren't like super similar, but I feel like when I first saw this, I just thought they really gave the same vibe to me. So I'm going to do the ELF one on my right eye, and I'll do the Charlotte Tilbury one on my left eye, and we'll try to create a similar look using both of these palettes on separate eyes. Starting with the ELF side, I'm going to take this matte mauve-y pink and just use this as my transition shade. I will be using different brushes for each eye as well, so we don't have any crossover to the color. So in terms of the formulation differences and similarities, I feel like they're pretty similar. Some of the ELF shades aren't as pigmented as the Charlotte Tilbury shades, but it kind of goes each way because the Charlotte Tilbury palette, some of the metallics aren't as pigmented as the ELF ones. So with the Charlotte side, there isn't really a matte pink. There's only one matte, and it's this deep purple. So I am going to take this metallic purpley pink, which I think is similar in tone to that shade. If you watch any of Charlotte's tutorials, you know she does use a lot of shimmer in the creases, so I'm fine with trying that. It's not going to be exactly the same as this eye, but I'm going to try my best here. So I'm just going to dip into this shade and then blend that in, using it as a transition as well. And I feel like even though these are metallic, when you blend them in, they're not sort of as harsh as you'd expect them to be. So here we have those two shades, and they are different finishes, but I feel like they do pull the same hue on the eye, which is exciting. Next, for the ELF palette, I'm going to take this berry metallic, which is more purple than this other more burgundy hue. With this shade, I want to keep it focused on the outer half of my eye, and I will bring it into the crease a little bit. We're really just trying to pack the pigment on there. And with whatever's left on the brush, I'm just going to drag it out to blend everything. And to match that over on this eye, I'm going to take this metallic plum shade and do the same placement over here. All right, there's that. I still feel like they look really similar. I did notice the Charlotte shade was more pigmented. I had to build up the ELF one a little bit, get it to look more similar to the Charlotte side. Next, I'm going to take the deepest shade in the ELF palette, which is this burgundy plum. And I'm gonna focus this right on the outer corner, almost like I was doing eyeliner, but not really, just really smoked out, but focused in that type of area. I'm gonna drag it a little bit into the crease too. And then taking the last shade in the Charlotte palette, the matte purple, and doing the same placement. I'm actually really surprised how similar these are looking on the eye, although they do swatch a little bit differently. With the matte shade, I actually found the Charlotte Tilbury one to be a little bit patchy. I'm not really sure why. I feel like the ELF one went on a lot nicer. And overall, I do think the ELF ones are a little bit less pigmented, but I don't think the Charlotte Tilbury palettes are really so different in terms of pigmentation. They're not like a super pigmented eyeshadow like sort of Anastasia is. They're definitely a similar sort of application experience. For the lid, I want to use the shade I feel like is most similar because we do have this rich burgundy in the ELF palette, which I think is so pretty. But the Charlotte palette doesn't really have anything like that, so we're gonna use the berry tone that they both have that are similar there. And I'm just gonna use my fingers for this part. So I'm just using this ELF one here and patting this on my lid. The metallic in this ELF palette, they feel really creamy when you apply them with your finger, which is nice. They're not really dry. I feel like they don't have any fallout either, which I like. And then moving along to the Charlotte palette, taking this shade. This one's definitely way more pigmented off the bat. It's a little bit softer and deeper than that other one. I'm going back in with the ELF shade to layer it up just to sort of match the pigment on this eye. For the lower lash line, I'm just going to take the same shade I've just put on in both palettes and just smudge that on the outer half of my eye. For my inner corner and brow bone, since there's not really a highlight shade, I'm just going to grab a white shade from a different palette and just pop that on both eyes. Looking at my eyes both off camera and in the viewfinder, I really can't find anything that's noticeably different. I feel like the Charlotte Deep Purple did have some more depth to it, so that's the only thing I feel like I can notice between the two, but they look so similar. I'm kind of amazed at how similar these look, even though they do inherently have some different shades when you swatch them and look at the tones of them. Definitely impressed. I think the performance of both of the palettes were nice. I mean, these are such a huge price difference, so if you were looking at the Charlotte palette and you found a colorway that you like, maybe check on ELF and see if they have one that's similar, because I feel like that's just such a steal. Like $3 is kind of crazy. But anyway, let me go ahead. I'll do some black liner and lashes and tie this look up. All right guys, so that was everything for my Charlotte Tilbury and ELF dupe slash comparison video. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I would love for you to join me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.